Today is the day. This is the TAC conference. This is the TAC 2021 hybrid conference where we are reimagining, we are reinvesting, and we are recreating how businesses in the African-American community are looking in the state of Texas. My name is Matt Houston, and I am your 2021 hybrid conference chair, and I would like to welcome you to the experience we will have for the next few hours. And then you will hear from several experts, subject matter experts, leaders of chambers of commerce, and distinguished presidents, state legislative officials, and guests to discuss the state of Black business in Texas during this pandemic season. But also we are going to workshops so you are able to receive tools to take back to either your businesses, your chambers of commerce, or to your community. So the tone that we would like to set here on our virtual platform is one, informational. Two, is educational. We don't want you just to receive information. We don't just want you to learn it, but it's also the application because we are in a season where African-American businesses need to become equipped so that we can support our community. And we can only do that through communication, through education, and through collaboration. So for the next few hours, please enjoy the presentation. We have our national economist that will be introduced shortly. You will hear from a lot of leaders from across industry to discuss economic development. We're discussing banking, mergers and acquisitions. We're discussing nonprofit and board leadership. We're also going to have a roundtable so that we can discuss best practices so that we can build our organization. So please sit back, relax, and enjoy this virtual conference. I would like to introduce to you all our fearless leader. Mr. Charles O'Neill serves as president of the Texas Association of African-American Chambers of Commerce, officed in Austin, Texas, but he's from Killeen, but he hails in Dallas, Texas. He's a former president of the Dallas Black Chamber, and we are honored to have you as our fearless leader in the state of here in the state of Texas. Mr. Charles O'Neill, please introduce the rest of our presenters for this morning.
Good morning, Matt. And thank you so much for that introduction and that overview for the conference. Thank you for the work you've done to ensure that this conference comes off as among our best. You know that we work tirelessly over the years to make sure that the content provided in our conferences in person and for the second year in a virtual format is precisely the kind of info that business owners from across the state or across the nation, in many cases, can use to improve outcomes for their business. That's all the work that we do that's all it's for, is to improve opportunities and profitability for the businesses that we serve in the 25 chambers that we work for here in the state of Texas. This morning, we were working on having a special guest in for you this morning, Mr. Ron Busby, who is president of the U.S. Black Chambers, because we have some exciting news broke yesterday that impacts the people that we work for here in the state of Texas. And we want Ron to, just having a little tough technical difficulty this morning getting in. We expect to hear from him shortly. But the next gentleman that you'll hear from is a longtime friend of TAC. You've heard him every year for, I think now, Bill, the last 7 years, minimally, maybe 8. William Cunningham, in my estimation, the world's best economist, is presenting for us again the Texas Black Business Economic Forecast. Again, he has done this work for us. He's been able to identify trends, enlighten us on what the outcomes can be expected from those economic trends and how we might best position our businesses to get in front of whatever economic, whatever is happening in the economy. So without further ado, Big Bill, as I mentioned to you that we were expecting to hear from Busby. I don't want you to interrupt your presentation, but I certainly want you to know that we appreciate you, your consistency, your commitment to the work that we do here. We thank you. And without further ado, Mr. William Michael Cunningham, Washington, D.C. based economist from Creative Research, Investment Research. Take it away, Bill. Good morning and thank you.
Good morning and thank you. Can you hear me okay? Everybody can hear me okay? I'm assuming, there you go. A couple of things I want to do to start out with. And, when Ron comes on stream, feel free to jump in. That's important news, important work that you guys are doing. Now, I'm going to go through this pretty quick. This is the 8th year, by the way, that I've given this talk, and I am grateful for each and every one of those years. And again, I really appreciate the work you're going to do. Now, a couple of things to start with. I want to give a shout out to Chris Herring, who survived cancer. And again, Chris, I'm thinking about you, praying for you. Glad to see you on the call. And then my interns, Ethan Lee and Dina Hardy. And Jack, I see you. Jack is a new intern who might be coming on stream. So I appreciate all of the work that they do. Now, let's get started. I'm going to go through this pretty quickly. So don't try to read all of the text on the slides. Just take notes. And again, these slides will be made available to you. So let's get started. We're going to start with a review of the national economic situation based on data out of the Federal Reserve Bank of Dallas. We're going to drill down to Texas, and then we're going to talk about Texas corporations, and we're going to wind up with an approach that we think will be beneficial for Black businesses in the state of Texas, a new approach. Now, in terms of the current economic situation, the current economic situation is strong. This is a solid expansion given the COVID-induced labor and supply chain constraints. But according to the National Association of Business Economists, 2/3 of their economists expect GDP to increase between 3% and I'd say 6% by this time next year. That's very good. Now, the manufacturing and non-financial services sectors are strong. Retail sales and home sales rose. Loan volumes are higher. With growing oil prices, we know the energy sector is experiencing robust growth. Agricultural conditions are strong. And then finally, employment wage growth is highly elevated. And this is because of the revaluation of the value of life and work that you're seeing with respect to the population. It's not due to the fact that people want to sit at home and collect welfare checks or child tax credit checks, which, by the way, have significantly reduced childhood poverty. It's because people have gone through this COVID crisis and they've seen 700,000 of their fellow citizens die. And that's led to a fundamental reevaluation of the value of life and work, which we fully support. Now, our forecast is this. We think that, there's a lot of talk about inflation, but we think that these are fear-based labor and supply chain disruptions. We think that these disruptions will recede with proper fiscal and monetary policies. Now, what are proper fiscal policies? Well, we've seen a lot of the talk about health, the redistribution, social repair, green strategies and technologies, and also fair monetary policies. We're working on a Black maternal mortality reparation facility. Dina Hardy, one of my interns out of University of California, Berkeley, is leading the charge there. And these are the types of policies that we think will help to reduce the shocks that we've seen. Now, one of the other things from an analysis perspective to understand is that the current labor and supply chain disruptions are not comparable to earlier disruptions. Why? Because of globalization. Remember, globalization hollowed out US manufacturing. It reduced wages and increased inequality. And there were those of us who were saying that it did not make sense to offshore all US manufacturing in case you had situations like this, where you had an emergency and you needed to get goods and supplies without sending them 6,000 miles away, because we knew that those shipping costs were going to be elevated and they were going to cause delays. Also, we know that the decline in ethical standards of business behavior has been a factor in the labor and supply chain disruptions that we're seeing. Just look at the damage caused by the prior occupant of the White House. From our economic perspective, we see inequality as the greater risk now, not inflation. So protecting the financial standing of a small group of mainly non-minority individuals or institutions is not the way to go. The economy, the society is recalibrating away from that Chicago school free market economic model to something that's more humanistic. Now, Texas, let's talk Texas. Let's talk where we're seeing the growth in new businesses. And this is data from a number of news sources that we use, Yelp, LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter. We're using these new data sources because they're more accurate and they are higher frequency. So in terms of overall growth of new Texas-based businesses, trucking, not a surprise, given the supply disruptions that I just mentioned. Real estate management, investments, restaurants, and services not elsewhere classified are some of the areas in which we are seeing elevated growth with respect to the number of new Texas firms. Once again, these slides will be made available to you, so don't try to read everything. Just know that you can get these slides and go through them at your leisure. All right, let's look at Black businesses, where the growth is in the Black business side in Texas. Well, we're seeing growth in the healthcare side. Physicians and surgeons, nurses and practitioners, churches, and restaurants. Now, what we think is going on with respect to restaurants, we think that a number of the facilities that had been closed in 2020 and through the early part of 2021 are reopening. So that's one of the reasons why you're seeing this increase in the number of Black restaurants. By the way, this data is not specific to Black firms. This is tracking Black firms and executives. So some of these individuals, you see the counts, some of these individuals might be working for non-minority firms. We're tracking the number of people in these sectors. The key here is healthcare. Healthcare. This is the analysis that we performed last year, that we shared with you all last year, concerning the social impact of various business activities. I want you to take a look at that third row below the little circle there. Health, the most critical factor with respect to social impact. If you skip down to the bottom there, you'll see that education is the second most impactful business activity. So the activity that we've seen, that we've just shown you, is consistent with that analysis that we had presented last year. I'm going to come back to that because we're going to highlight some of the things that we had said. Now, this is a map that shows the location of Black firms and executives in 2021. No surprise here. Dallas, Houston, Austin, San Antonio. These are the concentrations that you see of Black firms and Black executives. Of course, that has not changed. Now, looking at the overall mix, the overall Black population mix across the region, this again is a slide that we had presented last year that showed Black population by county. As we have said, you see a lot of concentration in Mississippi, Louisiana, Georgia, of course. TAC should be recruiting heavily from those geographies. Now, the other thing I want you to take a look at is that you see the state of Texas and you see that little brown county there on the seacoast. That's going to be important. Keep that location in mind because we're going to come back to that. Now, a note on data. You'll see this when you get the slides, but this is a response to the Federal Reserve Bank of Dallas. We requested information from them on Black business activity in Austin, Dallas, El Paso, Houston, San Antonio, so on and so forth. They came back and said, yeah, we don't really track that sort of thing. So another area for development is in encouraging the Federal Reserve Bank of Dallas to do a better job at tracking Black economic activity in their state. Speaking of which, one of the things that we've done is we've looked at corporate social responsibility in the state of Texas for 2021 and 2022. The reason is this is one of those slides that I warned you not to try to read the whole thing, and I'm going to go through it because it's a lot of text. You can read it when you get it. The reason is we've seen a lot of activity from the corporate side. Elon Musk announcing that he's moving Tesla to the state of Texas. The Texas Economic Development Office announced that there are 37 relocation evaluation inquiries underway. So from our perspective, this increased corporate presence in Texas is a problem for the nation as a whole, given the extremist policies of Texas Governor Abbott. He's worked to reduce voter access, allow anyone over the age of 21 to carry a gun without training or a license, and he's blocked public schools from requiring masks. From an economic perspective, we can tell you that these policies serve to reduce jobs and to cost the state. The Texas voter restrictions alone, we anticipate will cost the state over 200,000 jobs and $31.4 billion. Now, keep in mind, not all Texas companies are opposed to these policies. This raises another interesting point. The current perception is that corporate social responsibility has to be pro voting rights, voting access, pro gun control. That may not be the case. You may see, and we fully account for this, you may see that some of these more restrictive policies are actually attractive over time. So we keep that as a possible option. But bottom line is, from our perspective, we think that focusing on the free market may not be sufficient for business in your state these days, given the fact that 81% of consumers think that corporations should take action to address social issues. Another poll found that 2/3 of young workers would not work in a state with restrictions like the one that Texas has. So these are the potential costs of these very restrictive social policies. Keep that in mind. Now, in terms of a positive approach, where should TAC be tacking? Where should TAC be focused? Seaweed farming. I know you're saying, well, Bill, good grief. Seaweed farming, really? Yes. Seaweed is the fastest growing aquaculture sector. And, basically, given some of the policy choices that are going to be implemented by the EU, among others, to ban phosphate-based fertilizers, seaweed is an excellent alternative fertilizer. It's natural, and it's also has a number of other characteristics which make it very, very attractive. And then remember, I talked about two things. One, remember that state of Texas map that showed that heavily Black county? That's one area that we suggest you take a look at in terms of starting this type of initiative. And then remember, I also talked about the value of life and work reevaluation that's going on. Young people in general, really want to work in these types of new, sustainable, meaningful areas. Now, in order to kind of get started here, the barriers to entry are not very high. You need $20,000 to get a boat, 20 acres to farm, and that's basically about it. You need to tie into the supply chain, of course, but that's where an organization like TAC might be able to facilitate. And then, having beat up on the state of Texas for their restrictive social policies, we note that as of September 1st of this year, the state of Texas and the Texas Department of Agriculture no longer require licensing for aquaculture facilities. So, yeah, again, and this is always what we say, there's the good side of some of these policies and there's the bad side of some of these policies. And this is an example of one of the good sides, we think. So in terms of some of our research, here are some of the things that we're doing. Once again, don't try to read this. We'll send these slides out to you. You can click on these at your leisure. More research that we've done. Note our class, How to Finance a Black Woman-Owned Business in 2021, which is really popular and very highly rated on Udemy. So when you get slides, please sign up for these classes. Now, finally, let me wrap it up here by saying that we're still walking with you. Let's review the situation. Let's review where we are. Black people are having a moment. The business climate is very strong, but it will not last. We've seen this movie before. So our advice for TAC and its members, number one, apply to all Black business grants, loans, and investment programs that you can now. Look at helloalice.com as a source for information on these grants. And then also, as we said last year, support Black women. Support Black women. We see that sector as having huge potential, both from a social return perspective and a financial return perspective. Now, one of the organizations that we like, fundblackfounders.com, fundblackfounders.com. And then we talked about our suggestion for a seaweed farming initiative. In terms of the more mundane day-to-day, borrow now before rates go higher. Look at 30-year fixed rate loans and look at credit unions as the source for that capital. Now, on the investment side, as we've been saying for all 8 years, the Vanguard S&P 500 fund is our choice. And then I want to come back to Bitcoin, because last year, or actually in 2019, when we recommended Bitcoin, it was at $8,177. As of October 25th, each Bitcoin was worth $62,481. So that is a recommendation that we still stand behind. We still think that this is one of the ways to go. So now 30-year fixed rate credit unions, Vanguard S&P 500, Bitcoin from an investment and operational perspective. Well, I think that's going to do it for us for this morning. Again, thank you very much, TAC. Thank you very much, Charles O'Neill and Matt Houston, for inviting us to give this presentation. Let me close out here, stop that share. And then, of course, I told you I was going to go through this quickly. I know we got a lot to cover, but if there are questions and other concerns, I wanted to make sure we saved a little time for those. So once again, thank you.
Okay. Okay, Bill, don't go too far away. And good morning again, Bill. Thank you so much for that update. I mentioned to you before Bill's presentation, we're going to get back to Bill. He's not going away. We're going to answer the questions to him. But we also mentioned that we had an extra special guest for this morning. Ron Busby is the president of U.S. Black Chambers. Of course, he has always been a fan of TAC, a supporter of TAC. He's joined us at our annual conference in past years. He's there in Washington, D.C. We had some exciting news, and parenthetically, and Ron can address this, I do have the honor of serving as the chair of the board of U.S. Black Chambers, but we got some exciting news on yesterday, even while we were in our annual meeting, board meeting down in Houston yesterday. So I wanted Ron to come on this morning and kind of update the TAC chamber world. The 25 chambers operating in Texas clearly have been beneficiaries of the work that U.S. Black Chambers does on a regular basis. We support him. U.S. Black Chamber TAC members, TAC chambers are USBC members. And so without further ado, Ron, I know you're away from your usual exotic studio there in DC, but thank you so much for taking time out to join us this morning. Look forward to hearing from you.
Thank you, Charles, and thank you to all of the guests that are participating this morning. Again, my name is Ron Busby and grew up in Houston. As I say, was born on Sunnyside, so I've always felt like Texas was home. Had the opportunity to live there again as an adult, both in Houston as well as Dallas. So Texas is still a big place in my heart. As Charles mentioned, yesterday was a historic day, not for just America. We all heard about the passage of the Build Back Better program by the President of the United States. But yesterday, the Small Business Administration made the announcement of their Navigator program. For those of you that may not have known about the Navigator program, it was a $100 million grant that the Small Business Administration placed out. There were 800 plus applicants that applied for the grant. It was a hub and spoke concept where you would have 5 or 6 different hubs, and there would be spokes, so other associations in local communities. The whole concept of the Navigator program is to hit many of the small businesses that historically have not been able to gather the information and the resources, which means many of the Black businesses that we service around the country are the people that are most appropriate to be able to receive this type of information. It was there were 8 organizations that were awarded the grant in what was called Tier 1. The U.S. Black Chamber was one of 8 organizations that will receive a $5 million grant over the next 2 years. It will allow us to have what we call our 5 regional offices, as well as 25 other local. The details of the program will be shared with all of us next week. And as we get information, we'll make sure that we're shared. But it's a very interesting and exciting time for chambers across the country. There is going to be additional opportunities for our chamber members to also participate. Secondly, wanted to talk a little bit about the Buy Black application and registration. It was ironic. I was in the airport literally the day before yesterday, and I had on my USB-C pen, and a young man walked up to me and said, "Oh yeah, I use that app." And I was trying to figure out exactly what he was speaking of, and he was speaking of the Buy Black app. It was an opportunity for a young person to say, I may not be a member of a local Black chamber. I don't even know about the U.S. Black Chamber, but I know about the app. Consumers around the country are looking to spend their dollars in a responsible mode. We just heard Bill Cunningham talk a great deal about the importance of Black dollars and Black spend. This allows us to do that collectively as a country and as a people. Secondly, we know that last year we lost 41% of Black-owned businesses, almost 442,000 businesses closed during the first quarter of last year. And most of them, after they had been out of business, said the reason that they went out of business was because of lack of information. They just did not know where to turn to get the information, the resources they need. That's why having local chambers is so important, but more importantly, it's imperative that we reach out to those local Black businesses in our communities to make sure that they get the information. When we talk to corporations, they say that yes, they want to spend more money with Black firms, but they can't find them. So this allows them a resource. They can now find Black businesses around the country. Last month, we were actually able to register 12,000 Black firms to onboard their Black-owned business at Buy Black. And I ask all of you that are listening, that are business owners or that run local chambers, to make sure that your business owners are onboarding and being certified. Most businesses are saying, yes, we're certifying and we're finding minority firms, but we're being more intentional. We're saying no. When the President of the United States went to Tulsa, Oklahoma last year, he didn't say he wanted to spend more money with minority firms. He said he wanted to increase the spend with Black firms from 5% to 15%. And after that meeting, we asked him how, and he said that they would commit to using the U.S. Black Chamber Buy Black app to make sure that those businesses could be found. And so if you're a business owner, make sure that you're putting your information in so that you can be found as well. Next was our relationship with NABOB. Many of you know that there are 180 Black radio stations around the country and a dozen Black TV stations. Well, the U.S. Black Chamber has partnered with NABOB to now allow us not just to be the voice of Black business, but now to have a vehicle, a microphone, a resource to us to be able to get that information out around the country for grants, for contract opportunities, as well as to be able to just talk about business issues that are pertinent to Black business owners, not just in Washington, D.C., not just in Texas, but across the globe. And so you'll get more information about that in the weeks coming up. And then lastly, we just finished our national conference, as Charles just mentioned. It was 2 weeks ago at the MGM Grand. It was our Buy Black conference, and we will be doing the same thing next year. Next year, you will see us doing 4 events. The first quarter, we will have our women's conference in the month of March here in Washington, D.C. We will later partner with the Congressional Black Caucus to have our legislative caucus in June. We will be having our national USBC School of Chamber Management and National Conference in Washington, D.C. later during the month of June and July. And then our Buy Black conference again will be in 2022 back at the National Harbor MGM Grand. During our conference, we made some announcements of Corporation of the Year, which was American Express. They committed $1 million to the Buy Black app, and also committed to spending $1 billion with Black firms between now and the end of the year 2025. Our Advocate of the Year was a combination of Senator Ben Cardin out of Maryland and your own Congressman Al Green for their support and commitment to codify the Minority Business Development Agency, the only agency in the country that even supports minority and Black-owned businesses. Our third one was Women Business of the Year. Many of you may have heard of Slutty Vegan out of Atlanta, Georgia. They have a great mission. They've given back. The burgers are great. They have a unique concept and recently have been picked up to go national. So we are very excited about their success. And our Business of the Year was a marketing firm, 1035 out of Chicago, Illinois. He's also one of our President's Circle members, and you'll hear a lot more about what they're doing and some of the programs that they have to offer. And then lastly, which was our Chamber of the Year, which was the Urban Chamber out of Las Vegas, Nevada. And we're really looking forward to not only what they're doing in 2022, but in the future. Las Vegas is one of those cities that are definitely on the rise. We are looking to partner with the city to do more opportunities for Black business owners. So the future is a very exciting time for Black businesses. As you've heard from Bill Cunningham, there's a lot of industry that's specific for our businesses around the country. And so again, we want to say thank you for those businesses. Make sure you're onboarding your business at byblack.us. Again, byblack.us to make sure that you're being found, as well as find out more about the resource that the U.S. Black Chamber has. Charles, I appreciate the opportunity. We at the U.S. Black Chamber are really excited about the relationship that we have with TAC, as well as the other chambers. And lastly, we were awarded just recently the first Women Business Center in the city of Tulsa, Oklahoma. I know it is very near and dear to what's happening there in Texas. Many of them will say that they're the oldest Black chamber in the country. You heard conversations about Dallas. I think they were both born the same year, 1926, and we're honored to be a part of both of those organizations, both the Women's Center in Tulsa, as well as the Texas African American Chamber members as well. Thank you guys so much.
Thank you, Ron, so much for taking a break. I know you're busy. We actually pulled you out of a meeting this morning to join us this morning. We appreciate those updates. Just for clarification, I want our members to understand that the announcement of the award for the Navigator program includes TAC's role as one of the hubs that will be executing the work plan of the Navigator grant among the hubs around the country. And so that part is really exciting. If you will, real quickly, Ron, you know, my deal is advocacy. And if you do a quick dive through our Black print.
Great question. So the U.S. Black Chamber was really founded on 5 pillars. And the first one is advocacy. And to keep us kind of consistent each year, we update what we call our Black print. We provide that to legislators, decision makers, policy makers across the country, as well as share it with local chambers, as well as state chambers like yourselves and TAC. This year was really about a few things. One was to first codify the Minority Business Development Agency, and I am honored to say that legislation has been heard, has been approved, and you will see that being rolled out during the first quarter of 2022. Our second one was really about additional funding for Black-owned businesses, and you see that we made the modifications and changes to the payroll protection plan, as well as the idle loan plan, to make sure that Black business owners were able to participate in the largest stimulus package this country has seen. The next one is really around contracting. There's a lot of talk now, even this week, about capitalization and size management for business owners. And we're addressing the size standards to make sure that our businesses can participate in the infrastructure bill once it gets passed. There are some real unique challenges for Black business owners, as well as minority business owners in this infrastructure bill that, if not dealt with, could really hamper our businesses. And then lastly, as we discussed, the Navigator program was one of the deals that we felt was important for Black business owners, to make sure that our chambers, as well as business owners, were receiving the resources that they left long-term. And lastly was about our international trade opportunities. And so you will see the U.S. Black Chamber do more information, trade missions about doing business in Africa. We really feel like the Black dollar across the globe is really what's going to change Black businesses here in America, as well as around the rest of the globe.
All right, Ron, thank you so much. I see our chair has joined us this morning. There's a couple of questions in the chat. I wanted to bring our chair, tax chair, Courtney Johnson Rose, into the conversation. Ron, thank you. If you need to break, just send up a flare. Tell them Antoine and Farad, we say good morning as well, and tell them stop eating, rattling those dishes while you talk. But thank you so much for that update, Ron, and we'll talk before the day is over, I'm certain. Okay.
Thank you so much to all of you that are listening and participating. Good luck, continued success, happy holidays, and know this: you have a president there in Charles O'Neill who is definitely doing the work for the business owners in Texas across the globe. Thank you and continued success, Charles.
Thanks so much, Ron. All right, good morning. All right. So Big Bill, thank you so much for your patience. We had two questions for you right off the top. Number one, the question when Ron referenced Black news, the Black radio stations and television stations, they asked about what about Black newspapers? And clearly we have a relationship ongoing with NNPA as well. But there was a question that says, what do you think are the prospects for home health agencies in the state of Texas?
Well, that's a great question. I saw that come through. There's a firm in Texas called CoreMed. I'm going to drop the link in the chat room. What they do is concierge medical services. We think this is what they bring the doctor, the nurses to you, kind of where you are. And they're a Black-run company. They just got $500,000 from the Microsoft Black and African American Partner Initiative, another strong program that I encourage everybody to take a look at, even if you're a non-tech company, just so you can know about Black tech companies. But basically, the idea is that with the new tech tools that are being developed, there is a push to bring those services to you. And rich white people have had access to this forever. I tell the story about being in a meeting in Washington, D.C. with a very wealthy white guy. And this is back in the 90s, and having his doctor show up at the hotel meeting and give him some treatment there at the hotel meeting. So rich white people have always had access to this. This is something that technology is now making available to everyone. CoreMed, concierge medical, health tech apps. I think that's the future. There's a brother out of the UK, also David Gray, who is developing an Alzheimer's monitoring app that's going to monitor the status of seniors with, and anyone really, with Alzheimer's remotely. So this is where we think things are going.
Well, that is good, and kind of I heard you in your doing your slideshow. You talked about the child tax credit and those things. Talk about, given on the background of Busby's announcement about the Navigator grant. Talk about how public policy impacts economic opportunity. And that's kind of a broad kind of deal, but I think we have stressed over the years to our member chambers and businesses across the state how critical it is that they study what happens in legislation, number one, but arm themselves with enough information that they can begin to influence policy so that the outcomes don't miss us. Go ahead.
The key is to understand there is no great American wealth that has ever been created without government support. This idea that all great wealth that's been created here has been created by individuals is sure, there's individual effort involved, but at each and every point, when you look at the great railroads, farms, agriculture, land, all of these have been created with due to government support. And it's important to recognize that what that means is that you have to be engaged in the discussions about what types of government support are going where. And that gets into the policy side of things. Again, most importantly, don't buy into the fiction that all of the wealth has been created through individual effort. No, it's all of them. Literally, when you look at the economic history of this country, all of those great pools of wealth have been created with government support. That's why it's necessary for us to be engaged and involved in those discussions. We see it all the time. And the seaweed farming idea that we brought up is a good current example of that. There's no question that the EU policy eliminating phosphate-based fertilizers improves the economic outlook for that sector. As you approach the creation of an initiative to move that forward, should you decide to do so, there's no question that government support will be required and will be involved in the creation of those types of sectors. So it's critically important, especially now, because things are moving very, very quickly. We've just come out of this unprecedented financial, economic, social crisis. And as you recalibrate, as you restructure the economy, there are huge opportunities for us to do better. There's no question about it. But it's not a done deal. It's not obvious that we are actually going to necessarily do better coming out of this crisis. We can, and certainly there's, as I mentioned, there's a lot of support for Black businesses that we're seeing. We did the study that showed that there are $67 billion in Black Lives Matter pledges, for example. But the question is, what's the nature of those pledges? Who's benefiting? And how can you utilize those pledges from a business support perspective? We think there's the first thing you got to do. You got to know who's doing what, who's saying what, who's making the pledges, and what are the pledges about. And that's part of, again, I'm going to drop another link to some articles where we talk about that. That's part of what we're doing. But no, you're exactly right. You've got to be engaged in those discussions. Otherwise, this stuff happens to you. You wind up and you don't know why your financial or economic situation is so bad. And then you can trace it back to decisions made by legislatures, mayors, county commissioner, all of these sorts of things in terms of impacting your current economic situation. So it's just critical to be engaged.
That's good, Bill. And we got a couple of questions, both of which you and I have spent hours, it seems like, discussing, and roll them both out to you and let you roll them together. One is a question about where are Black firms in manufacturing? You just talked about how policy shapes economic opportunity or providing access or barring access. So where are we in terms of like manufacturing opportunities? And the second one, back to your presentation, what is the opportunity outlook for agricultural opportunities?
Well, both of those are tied together because people should understand that agriculture is kind of a lot of agricultural products are exported, and our agriculture goes around the world. And it's, you can kind of consider that as a natural manufacturing industry, but manufacturing nonetheless. The outlook for manufacturing is better than it has been at any point over the past 30 years. But remember why the situation got so bad. It got so bad because everybody was following these University of Chicago School economic theories, which said that if a country can make widgets for $1 less than another country, then all widget production should move to the country that has the cheaper cost of manufacturing. We know that that's silly because there's some value in having manufacturing facilities in your country in case all of these transportation networks go down. And again, think about mass. Think about what happened with mass. So we offshored all of that mass creating capability to China. And when we really needed mass, we really did not have the manufacturing capacity to be able to come up to speed as quickly as we needed in order to save lives, because we had to get, people were flying jets over to China and bringing mass back to New York City and all this. What you should have done was made sure that you understood that there is some value in having manufacturing capacity in your geography that is outside of the economics of the calculations. It's not always about the cheapest. Sometimes it's about making sure that you have the ability to manufacture the goods that you need in case of an emergency. And that's, again, what this crisis showed us. So my hope is that with that example of the mass, a very current, cogent, relevant example, that we will start to see the recreation of manufacturing facilities in the US. Now, from an agricultural perspective, one of the things that we're seeing, there certainly is a movement on the part of Black people to try to reestablish some of the agricultural facilities that used to be in our hands over the course of the past 30, 40, 50, 100 years. We know a lot of those resources got stolen and weren't supported by USDA. There was a big lawsuit that confirmed that. So reestablishing those facilities too is something that would be very beneficial. That's why we're forecasting and why we are focused on seaweed. We see that as a way to start to ease your way back into agriculture in a new, sustainable way that is a huge market that's not being done on a consistent basis by Black people anywhere in the world that we're aware of. So this is an opportunity to create a globally competitive approach in your state using a new technology that has great attraction to the younger demographic. Again, Ethan Lee, our intern out of American University, was the one that brought this to our attention. And again, we think it speaks to that demographic. I hope that answered the question.
Oh, that does answer the question, but it also brought up one more, Bill, and that gets us closer to the top of the hour. All of what we've talked about and taking advantage of these opportunities is going to be reliant on availability of capital. Talk about what the prospects are for improved access to capital and what role Black-owned or Black financial institutions will play in making that capital available.
Well, I'll start at that last point first. As you know, we started out back 30 years ago with minoritybank.com, looking at Black and minority banks. And what we've discovered, what we have researched over the past 30 years, is that the Black banks are simply too small. They simply cannot. They're too small, and because of their size and because of the focus that's on them, they can't really operate in a way that is transformational for Black businesses. They used to be able to, but that was a different age, 50 years ago. Martin Luther King mentioning Tri-State Bank of Memphis in his final speech, that was a long time ago. We now see the opportunity for newer financial transmission mechanisms, the number one of which is, and think about this. So we came down in 2017 and we said, hey, buy Bitcoin, when it was, I think, about $3,000. And the reason why we said that was because we thought, well, this is a tool that might be able to provide the capital that Black businesses need. It's now at 62,000. I understand that it is a risky proposition, and that we were very early on that train. But basically, we think that if Black businesses are going to get the capital they need, they're not going to get them from majority-owned financial institutions. They never have. They're not going to now. Why would they now? Having said that, though, let me also state that there are a number of initiatives that have popped up. I mentioned Hello Alice. Go to Hello Alice. Look at all the grants and the loan program. Apply for everything. I might be wrong. Bill Cunningham, you may not know what you're doing. There might be some money out there for you. So apply to all of those programs. But basically, the other way that I think that Black people are going to address the capital issue is through cooperation and collaboration. I think that we can't depend upon white financial institutions. Have never been our friends, and they're not going to be our friends, no matter what they say now. Even the $67 billion that's been pledged for Black Lives Matter is peanuts. It's a drop in the buckets relative to the entire $100 trillion of wealth that's in this country. So depending upon these small pools, just not going to do it. We've got to come together. We've got to collaborate, use tools like fundblackfounders.com to launch and support crowdfunding campaigns that have been put together by Black people. Cooperate, collaborate, look at some of these newer tools like Bitcoin in order to try to generate the kind of revenue that you need. And then, of course, certainly look at the government agencies and those resources. Absolutely. You should definitely be applying for those types of resources, but you should also be engaged, as you pointed out, Charles, at the policy level in terms of looking at those programs when they're created, when that money's going out the door, really engaging and trying to direct some of that money to your community. Because if you come in after the programs have been created and put out there, chances are you're not going to get a fair slice of the resources. Those resources are going to go to others. We know that. We saw that with all of the programs that were created to support businesses during this time of crisis. And a limited number of those resources actually wound up in Black hands. Why? Because we weren't necessarily strongly engaged at the start of those policy discussions and programs. Had we been more directly engaged, we could have directed more of those resources to our businesses. We didn't. And of course, when you're talking resources in a state of crisis, Black people are kind of an afterthought. They were kind of the last ones to get funding. So getting engaged across those axes. But the key, cooperation, collaboration. Remember, this financial system was never designed for Black people to be the beneficiaries of. It was designed for Black people to be the victims of. And we played our role. We helped to create this $100 trillion society, no question about it. So you have to kind of keep that in mind and have an alternative strategy. But like I say, cooperation, collaboration, not buying into the money worship. Also, that's one thing that we see. We see a lot of this worship. Oh, we billionaires, we need to be built. No, No, you don't need to be billionaires. What you need to have is you need to have 10 million people who have $500,000. That's actually what you need to have, as opposed to one person having, or two people having $1 billion. This money worship, this celebrity worship works against our long-term interests.
Thank you so much for that response, Bill. In fact, we've got an upcoming workshop that addresses it in a fashion, allowing businesses to have access to capital for growth to scale. One of the things that we've talked about, gaining a competitive advantage requires scale. And it's just that we've got to grow businesses, and that, back to our conference theme, reinvest, reimagine, reinvest, and recreate. We just have to think of new ways to grow our enterprises so that we can truly be competitive in a very competitive economic environment. And so you always leave us wanting more, Bill. You always deliver more than we imagined was possible. We thank you so much for staying with us over the course of years. Our conversations are illuminating, and your presentations are always insightful. And I'm certain that when these folks get your presentation from today, your email is going to be flooded with big thumbs up, number one, but how can you help me grow my business? And so thank you so much again for your ongoing support of the work we do at Texas Association of African American Chambers of Commerce.
No, I really appreciate it. And to my guys, to my interns, Ethan Lee, Dina Hardy, and Jack, send me your summaries via email as soon as you write them up. But again, I appreciate this. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And we're back to Matt Houston, our conference chair.
Well, thank you, Mr. Cunningham, the man, for providing, as always, an amazing forecast. One, and instructions. This is not a forum where this is a feel-good conversation and we feel educated. It's a nice philosophical discussion and we can move about our way of our life. No, you're giving us action items, and that's important for us to state because there's a lot of work to do, and in creating new emerging markets. That Seaweed Southeast Texas, I am looking up my cousins because I know I have people down there, and we need to start strategizing. And so thank you for that tidbit. What we will have, I did not mention this earlier, but we will provide opportunities to digitize these presentations so that we can present them through YouTube, through our Facebook channel, so that we can have this as information for our community. All right, it is 10:01 now. We've had our first panel. Now it is time to start going into our workshop sessions. Starting at 10:30, we will have several workshops. Our first workshop is with Regions Bank, that is going to discuss building banking relationships. We have one of our partners, our tech partners, Tyrus, here, and we're excited for his presentation. And then we have a workshop by the Dallas Black Chamber of Commerce. If you are a nonprofit or if you are a Chamber of Commerce and you want to operate your business in the COVID season, please attend that session as you hear from Harrison Blair, the president of the Dallas Black Chamber of Commerce. If you after that, we will have another set of 45-minute sessions where you all will be able to interact with the presenters, and then we will reconvene for our annual luncheon. Now, we recorded this luncheon in Houston yesterday, and we will produce the recording at 12:30 today. The video, we have it blocked for 1 hour and 15 minutes. We will end early in a lot of our main sessions so that you can take bio breaks and things of that nature. But we really want you all to consume and absorb the information throughout the conference. So if you can, please log in, go into the portals 10 minutes early, 5 minutes early, look for the workshop that you would like to attend, select those workshops. If you cannot attend one of the workshops that has that time allotment, you will have access to view it at a later time. And so please, we want to make sure you all enjoy this conference. If you have people who still want to register, we cannot, our registration link is closed. But if you can, I think there is an email address I can send an email to EM support at our portal, our website. I will actually, if our tech support can send that email on the chat box to our panelists. There we go, emsupport@advancedlabs.org. I want to have a special shout out to Angela, the tech support, and Advanced Net Labs company for providing our infrastructure for our virtual conference. This is their second year, and they are a great supporters of the Texas Association of African American Chambers of Commerce. So thank you for allowing us to provide this for our members. So please, you have 25 minutes. Our first session starts at 10:30. So please check some emails, do what you need to do so that we can have a great workshop at 10:30. Thank you all and have a great day.
Matt, can we bring Madam Chair in?
Thank you. Sorry about that. I didn't know our chair joined us. There she is.
Good morning, everyone. So excited about today. Looking forward to it. Our conference chair and vice chair, Matt Houston, has put this all together for us. So great job to you, Matt, and to our president, Charles O'Neill. Just excited to jump into some workshops and get the day going. So excited about it. Thank you again for everyone. Please spread the word, post it, send out some emails. A lot of great information that will be shared today and at no charge. So we're very excited to provide this for business owners across the state of Texas, but please spread the word. Have a great day.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you very much for those words. And we will see you all at 10:30. Have a great one.